In this video, let's discuss cloud computing jobs. What are the various jobs which you can have as far as cloud computing is concerned? And not just cloud computing, but we're going to be looking at cloud computing and DevOps jobs alike. Now, cloud computing is one of the key things that is driving the tech industry, and there are a whole lot of roles before and after the cloud. Now, even with the physical networks before prior to cloud computing, there were some job roles that were actually available. As far as cloud computing or before cloud computing, there were roles that required the administration of some resources, compute resources, and we had those roles as administrator roles. So we had some engineers that were responsible for doing some administration of servers, and some of the responsibilities of some of these administrators basically were for them to manage the applications of the to manage applications which are running on the cloud, manage databases that were running on the cloud, manage the network infrastructure of some resources, manage the network infrastructure of applications, and equally manage storage. So we had, for physical networks, prior to the advent of cloud computing, we had administrators that were responsible for application management or administration. We had administrators for database administration, administrators for networks, and administrator for storage. So the first category of some form of jobs which were available were administrator roles. Now, after administrator roles, we had roles with respect to security, how resources were secured in different infrastructure, and some of the security roles involve security around the entire cyberspace. So we have cybersecurity engineering roles, cybersecurity consultant, and cybersecurity analyst. So these were some security roles with respect to physical networks and even cloud networks. And then equally we had developer roles. The developers basically were those that were actually, or are those that were actually writing the code in different programming frameworks, JavaScript, CSS, PHP, HTML, and all the other frameworks. And these developers were basically responsible for writing application code, writing code for the website or web application codes, mobile application codes, desktop application codes, and equally these developers were programmers. So you could actually have roles like application developer, web developer, mobile developer, or even programmer. And then equally, the last type of roles which we had were DevOps roles, development operations, where we call them DevOps, development operation roles. And basically, this was a DevOps engineer that was ensuring that there was a smooth flow with the or between the engineering teams, the development teams, and the operation teams. We equally had the software engineers. Now, with the advent of cloud computing, there are different roles that individuals can occupy as far as cloud computing is concerned, and we are going to be looking at those cloud and DevOps job roles specifically. As far as cloud and DevOps is concerned, in the cloud, we can have roles around engineering, which we call engineer roles. We can have roles around architecting, which we call solutions architect roles. We can have roles around development, which we call developer roles, and we can equally have roles around security, which we call security roles, and development operations or DevOps roles. So as far as the cloud is concerned, we can have cloud engineer roles, cloud solution architects roles, cloud developer roles, security roles, and cloud DevOps roles. And we are going to be looking at each of these roles and try to understand some of the responsibilities as far as each of these roles is concerned. Now, looking at the roles individually, we are going to start by looking at the responsibilities of a cloud engineer. If you're hired as a cloud engineer, what are your key responsibilities within an organization? The cloud engineer basically designs and implements the cloud, both public, private, or even hybrid cloud environments, to ensure that there is effective communication between resources in and out of the cloud. So it is a cloud engineers' responsibility to design, to implement, and to maintain cloud networking environments. It might be on different cloud platforms, maybe Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Service, or even Google Cloud. And now, what are some of the key things which this role entails? This role also entails that it's a hands-on role where or which involves a vast amount of orchestration. You find yourself provisioning resources, planning how to come up with these resources, doing proof of concepts, drawing architectures, and all of that. So it's the responsibility of the cloud engineer to design and implement and equally maintain cloud environments, and also ensure that there is some form of orchestration, planning, and monitoring as far as cloud environments are concerned. Now, they equally implement network and operations systems for different organizations. So if you're looking at building a system on a given cloud platform that would ensure that there's network and effective system operation, That is most of the responsibilities of the cloud engineer. And we can have cloud engineers for different cloud platforms. We can have an AWS cloud engineer, a Google cloud engineer, Microsoft Azure cloud engineer, and so on. Now, one of the quotes which I got from one cloud engineer says, "My job is to provision and maintain resources in the cloud." So basically, that's provision resources on AWS or whatever cloud platform. It is their job to provision and maintain resources in the cloud. Now, the second job description which we are going to look at is the solutions architect. The solutions architect. Now, what is the responsibilities of the solution architect? The solution architect basically works with the cloud engineers and the IT teams to deploy, configure, and monitor hybrid and cloud solutions. When a company wants to provision new resources in a given cloud platform, they work with the IT engineers, the cloud engineers, the DevOps engineers to ensure that they architect the right resources needed by that company to run its applications on a given cloud platform. So the architecting is mostly done by the solutions architect, and is a responsibility to deploy, to configure, and to monitor some of these cloud, both hybrid and cloud solutions. The solution architect also is actually the solution architect role is actually a hands-on role, and it also has a high and a vast amount of planning and document writing. So you find yourself coming out with some form of proof of concept documents, designing architectures, documenting some of these architectures, documenting workflows for the different teams to use, and all of this is some form of, or all of this actually is the key responsibilities of a solutions architect. So if you see a role containing solutions architect, you should have at back of your mind that you'll mainly be deploying, you'll be configuring and monitoring hybrid and cloud solutions, and equally you'll be doing a lot of planning, designing proof of concepts, and documenting a whole lot around these cloud platforms. Now, you see, for example, a solution architect we do technical support, maintenance, and backups of our systems to ensure that the systems are effectively up and running. Now, the third role which we have is the cloud DevOps engineer. The DevOps engineer basically introduces processes, tools, and methodologies to balance the needs of software development lifecycle, from coding, deployment, and all the like, to ensure that the codes are actually up and running. It is a DevOps engineer that implements the DevOps life cycles, implements the DevOps tools, configure the DevOps tools, configure the DevOps pipelines, configure orchestration and all those automation requirements, and even monitoring requirements of the system. So as far as the software development lifecycle is concerned, from the point where the developers deploy the code and push to some version control system to the point where it is deployed in a given cloud platform, all this lifecycle for coding, deployment, and maintenance with updates are all managed by the DevOps engineer. So the DevOps engineer has a lot of monitoring, a lot of validation, and a lot of configuration as far as the entire software development life cycle is concerned. Now, the DevOps engineer spends a lot of their time configuring pipelines, creating pipelines for the development teams to be able to push some of the application and some of the infrastructure codes to meet their system requirements. Now, the next engineer which we have is the cloud security engineer. Because we are building solutions in the cloud, we equally want to make sure that these solutions are secure and accessible over the cloud. That is why the cloud security engineer basically focuses on ensuring that there's integrity, there's confidentiality, and there's availability of data and resources in the cloud. As you provision resources on a given cloud platform, maybe Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, Amazon Web Service, there is a cloud engineer who ensures that the infrastructure on AWS is secure, and even the applications hosted within the cloud is secure. That is a key responsibility of the cloud engineer. And the cloud security engineer also is a hands-on role and often involves a significant amount of coding and problem solving, troubleshooting if there are vulnerabilities, troubleshooting to see if there are some loopholes in the systems and all of that. So it is a cloud engineers, so it is a cloud security engineer that ensures that there are no vulnerabilities in a given system, and they spend a lot of time spending time how to. So one cloud engineer says, I get to spend my day learning how to build a better mousetrap. Monitoring system is key. So their responsibility is to ensure that they are effectively monitoring and tracking all malicious activity on a given cloud deployment for a company or an organization. Now, the next role which you have is the cloud software developer. The cloud software developer mainly are those people responsible for configuring the necessary or building actually the cloud softwares, building the applications that are running on the cloud, building the cloud platforms itself. So it's the responsibility of the cloud software developer. And the cloud software developer works with the IT teams, IT and information systems team to develop, maintain, and re-engineer hybrid and cloud-based applications. It's a responsibility to come up with the applications running on the cloud, maintain these applications, refactor, re-engineer all these applications, maybe running hybrid, on-premise, or on a given cloud platform. Is the responsibility of the cloud software developer. They are responsible for building all those software, or well, they are responsible for building all those cloud-based applications. And now it is also a hands-on role and often involves a significant amount of coding as well and problem solving. The developers build all the code, they write the code in different programming frameworks. They equally work with the database administration teams and all the other teams to ensure that there's effective communication and the applications actually meet the customer business requirements. So that is the main reason, or that's the main responsibility of the software developer. Now, they spend a lot of time reviewing and testing code submitted by my team. So this is one comment from one cloud software developer where he says he spent a lot of his days reviewing and testing code submitted by the team. Now, the next job role which you have is the cloud infrastructure engineer. The cloud infrastructure engineer basically designs, implements, and maintains cloud-based infrastructure systems such as servers, networks, and storage. So if a company is looking out for someone who can engineer or build the necessary infrastructure for their servers, their networks, and their storage, that is a key responsibility of a cloud infrastructure engineer. And the cloud infrastructure engineer ensures high availability, scalability, and security of cloud-based resources. All resources that are hosted on the cloud are being making them highly available, scalable, and secure. Most of this is done by the cloud infrastructure engineer, and they collaborate with teams to deploy and manage cloud native services across multi-platforms. If they're engineering a solution that might have optimal productivity on a given cloud platform or in another platform, it's a responsibility to collaborate within teams to deploy and manage these native solutions across multiple cloud platforms. And they build the cloud foundation that powers modern applications, ensuring reliability and performance. So that's the key responsibility of a cloud infrastructure engineer. Now we equally have the next engineer is a DevSecOps engineer. The DevSecOps engineer basically integrate security best practice into development operation or into DevOps lifecycle. We equally saw previously the responsibility of security engineer and the responsibility of a DevOps engineer. But the DevSecOps engineer is an integration between development best practices and DevOps best practices to ensure that this development or the DevOps lifecycle is completely efficient. Now, the DevSecOps engineer automates security testing, monitoring, and compliance tests. A lot of the tests around security, monitoring, and compliance are done by or is done by the DevSecOps engineer. Now, the DevSecOps engineer equally collaborate with the development teams to ensure security teams have secure environments. So if they're developing or if they are provisioning new resources, it's the responsibility of the DevSecOps engineer to ensure that some of these environments are secure. And we can get, well, one of the DevSecOps engineers says, I build the cloud foundation that powers modern applications, ensuring reliability and performance. Now, the next engineer which we have is the site reliability engineer. The site reliability engineer basically ensures system reliability, performance, and uptime through monitoring and automation. A lot of the responsibilities of the site reliability engineer is around system reliability, ensuring that at any given time, the users can have access to all the given application hosted in a given cloud platform. And they also check performance and uptime of systems to ensure that these systems are always optimal and accessible. And they implement some monitoring and automation to ensure systems are fully functional at all given times. The site reliability engineer also responds to system incidents and reduce operational toil through automation. They do a lot of automation, they carry out a lot of vulnerability scans, they carry out a lot of incident response, a lot of troubleshooting. That is the key responsibility of a site reliability engineer. And we equally have one cloud engineer. I equally have one site reliability engineer who says, I build the cloud foundation that powers modern applications, ensuring reliability and performance. Now, the next engineer which you have is the cloud administrator, and mostly this is for Azure roles. We can have a Microsoft Azure cloud administrator. The cloud administrator basically manages the cloud infrastructure, including provisioning, monitoring, and maintaining cloud services. They are more or less kind of like a cloud engineer, but they perform more of administration as far as cloud resources are concerned, and they equally implement cloud security policies, backup strategies, and disaster recovery plans. You find them managing a lot of role-based access control into services, access control into accounts, backing up, recovery, and all of that. So most of this is done by the cloud administrator. We equally have them optimizing cloud resources to reduce costs while maintaining performance. You have them coming up with multi availability zone deployments, coming up with some form of scalability requirements, high availability, and performance monitoring. So most of this is always done by the cloud administrator. And one cloud administrator says, I manage cloud environments to ensure they are secure, efficient, and always available. So that's one code from a former cloud administrator. Now, the next role, well, the last role which you have is a cloud support engineer. The cloud support engineer basically provides technical access to cloud computing users across all channels: chat, email, phone, video, in person. With respect to cloud platforms, it's the responsibility of the cloud support engineer to provide technical assistance as far as deployment in the cloud platform is concerned, and equally troubleshoot across corporate IT resources, applications, and various operating systems. It's the responsibility of the cloud support engineer to perform some form of front-end, high-level troubleshooting with respect to technical issues in accessing certain applications. And one of them says, I get to help people solve problems and help them to be more productive. That's one quote from a former cloud support engineer. So basically, these are some job roles with respect to the DevOps and cloud lifecycle. You want to check out the continuation of this module to get yourself the right skills to occupy any of these roles.